Okay, everybody, welcome. Today we're going to have a workshop on Tableau. This is the introduction to that. I'm Cynthia Henry, and I'm the librarian for the College of Human Sciences. And my colleague, Jingjing Wu, is here with us, and we'll be running this workshop together. Jingjing will be covering chat, so if you need help, she's available. This is going to be a quick run through Tableau. I'm hoping that we all get to a basic level. There are a lot of things Tableau can do that we will not cover today, but I'm hoping that you'll get quite a few kind of overview of the Tableau itself, and so that you'll get some basic knowledge, kind of see where you can do. Lots of software has tasks that you can do in multiple places, and I try to point those out depending on what you how you like to do it. So I try to make sure that. Also, I'm pretty interactive, so once we get going, I will ask some questions, and feel free to unmute or type in the chat and answer the questions. And if you don't know the answer, don't worry. I try to always explain it, and you can always ask a question. But I just find that sometimes discussion is useful, especially when we're looking at a new platform that we haven't been using, or we're trying to learn something new, and we're in this kind of setting where it's a Zoom instead of face-to-face. Feel free to pipe up if you want to speak out, because that's what we're here to do, is to learn something. Okay. So today we're going to just have, this is our outline. We're going to have a quick overview. We're going to talk about some Tableau terminology. We're going to work through a data visualization projects, and then we're going to have some exercises on your own with some new data. So we'll kind of learn with one set of data, and then we'll pull in the second set of data. So Tableau has two platforms. It has Tableau Public, and we'll talk about that for a second. And then we have Tableau Desktop, and I'll give you some more information about that. And so Tableau Public is a free program that you can sign up for. And that link is also on the guide that we're using. So if you needed to open that and set up your account, that's what we'll be using in just about 10-15 minutes. And we'll get going. So the Tableau Public only supports data sets of up to 15 million rows. Now, I know that 15 million rows sounds like a lot, but depending on what you're doing, sometimes that's a consideration in your data to know that. And it also has, you can upload Excel, Google Sheets, CSV, or MS Access. Depending on how your data is stored, you want it to be in one of those formats so that you can pull it into Tableau. Now, publishing, you can only save work to the web. So some people are concerned about that, and you should be, if that's a concern of yours, because then it's always open and public to the to anybody online, right? As long as they can find it. Now, it is kind of buried. You would have to really hunt down something if you were looking for it. But that is a consideration you should be thinking about. There are 10 gigabytes of storage there per account, so I don't think you will fill that up anytime soon. I think you'd have to be very prolific to get that filled up fast. But one other limit is that even though it is always online and it will be viewable online, you can disable the data download. And when we get to that point where we've saved it and it's published, I'll show you where you can make sure that your data download is turned off if that's what you want it to be, so that nobody can download the data that you're using. That said, I wouldn't put anything here that is not able to be seen by anybody. So if you really wanted that confidential, you might want to be looking in Tableau Desktop. And a lot of these steps that we'll learn in Tableau Public today will translate easily to the desktop. And it allows you to save files to your computer. And it has some additional connection options besides just the 4 that we had up above. You can also sometimes pull in things from databases or data sets, and then cloud services. So if you're a student here at Tech, you can get a 1-year license, and it's renewable. And that's the link that you would use to do that. And if you're a professor here or staff, you can use this as long as you're using it for teaching purposes, and it cannot be commercial research. So we have like a marketing department on campus. They could not use this tool in that setting because they would be promoting that for people to come into Tech. But any other kind of academic research area, you could get this. And I think this is renewable after 2 years or 3 years. They just want to make sure you're still at the same institution. But the students have to use it, have to get a new license every year, because they're hoping that you graduate. And so it's free while you're a student, but then once you're in industry, you would have to pay for it. So, unless you use the Tableau Public. Okay. So let's talk about Tableau. Tableau is a tool designed for visualizations. It can create lots of visualizations very quickly. It is unusual in the number and type of visualizations it offers and how easy it is to move between those. It offers all kinds of charts and graphs, as you can see here on the screen. And you can get with, it offers all kinds of charts and graphs you can get with a statistical graphics package, but it also does maps, and it also does tree maps. And tree maps is something that you might have seen on an infographic. But don't worry, if you haven't seen one of those, we'll see one in a bit. It focuses on interactive visualizations too. So you can click on things, selecting different options, which really allows you to set it up the way you want it to be reviewed. And your data is set in a specific setting so that you can publish it for your readers, and how you want your readers to interact with that data. You can make those choices. So we'll look at some of those as well. And then we can see here that this on the right is the database, is the Tableau screen, and it's called Sheets. So it's very much like, I'm going to kind of see if I can move this out of our way a little bit. See if that doesn't help. So it is called a sheet, which is very much like a spreadsheet, and it only has one visualization on each sheet. And then you can have several sheets in a workbook. So this whole screen is a workbook, and you can see all the little tabs on the bottom, and I'll show you those online as well, because it's quite tiny here. And then once you have several sheets, you would want to pull all those sheets into a dashboard. And so each one of these little squares is a sheet that we put into this dashboard, and that's where you can present several visualizations in one location and have them interact with each other, and highlight some data, or let the viewer sort the data if they wanted to, so they could select for whatever some options that you have there, and then it would interact with the other 2 squares or 3 squares, how many squares you have on the dashboard. So one last thing is you can make multiple sheets, multiple dashboards, and then there is a stories tab down here at the bottom. We won't be covering stories, but it is kind of like PowerPoint. So once you got in there and kind of played around a little bit, I think you could figure it out. But if you have any questions, you could always reach back out to me. So we're going to have some terminology here. So Tableau considers data variables to be either dimensions or measures. This is what I struggled with the most as I was learning Tableau. Measures are numbers, numerical data. Almost everything else is dimensions. You can have categorical variables like string data. String data is text data, but you can also have geographical data or date and time variables, and they will show up as dimensions. Understanding the data, how Tableau looks at it, is important, because Tableau will try to help you or force you into certain visualizations based on the data that's loaded. Tableau tries to predict what you want or need. But if Tableau sees two categorical variables, it will not understand how to build a visualization that is based on an XY axis, like a scatter plot, let's say. So it doesn't know how to chart those points over two categorical axes. It thinks of a scatter plot as numbers on the X and Y axis. And it's good to know this as it impacts what you pick to put on the chart. But you can also manipulate this as well. For example, if you can't find your variable, look to see if it's in the wrong list, and then you may need to move them around or recode the variables. And we'll do that a bit as well. So you'll see all of those examples as we get going. So let's just talk about some simple data first before we get into Tableau, and kind of talk about how Tableau is going to look at it. So this is just a simple orders list from a company. You can see we have the date and the amount and the product category. And I'm just going to move to the next slide. Tableau wants to sum all of the cells up. So you say to Tableau, do something with this column, and it says, okay, I'll give you the sum. But then to get it to go a little more detail about the data, you have to tell it which variable to use to split the numbers up across. First, you may pick a variable, for example, the product category, and you still have Tableau aggregating the sum of the sales and the product category. But then you can split it up by multiple items and by date. So now you can see that it's set up years, even though we had a day, a month, and a year. We're using the year here only. Tableau will try and pick what part of the date would be most useful for your data. The whole date down, so the whole date, which in Tableau is a month, a day, and a year. So that's a whole date. Or if it's more useful to only look at the year, it will do that. And it will even treat it like a dimension, which is what it's doing here. Okay, so you go through the process of dividing and summing your data and picking a way to represent the data. And you can pick different types of charts or colors or shapes. And then as we start to look at our data, we have some basic data formatting. You want to make sure that you remove any empty rows or non-data rows. Make sure each row is complete. Remove totals and sum totals. Really, Tableau needs a big block of data. And then we will also talk about Tableau Pivot, which is, if you've used anything in Excel, it's kind of like that, but slightly different. So we'll look at that. And I'm just going to check to make sure we have no questions before we get going. So, like quantitative versus quantitative. Kind of, but more like if we're saying that we have data from sales for the year, we may want to see which month was the most productive. So we may add the month and the year in so that you can see the total for the year or the total for months, and then see that. So it's not exactly quantitative to qualitative, but that's a good kind of way to look at different data. You need to always be looking at different data. So yeah. Okay. And then we have one more. So this really is what we're going to be talking about kind of in the middle of the workshop, but I wanted you to just kind of see this. I'm going to show you how to take something that we see on the left, and we'll make it more look like on the right so that we can use it in Tableau. And this is really downloaded from government data sets. And I figure quite a few of y'all are pulling data from somebody else and manipulating that data and maybe using that in research. And so I think sometimes just seeing some basic data and how to get it to a point where you can use it in Tableau is useful. But first, let's go ahead and get into Tableau. So I'm going to get out of my slides unless anybody had any question here. I'll give it a second in case somebody wants to unmute or type something. Okay, well then I'm going to get out of my PowerPoint. And I have my account pulled up, and I'm just going to use it to get in my profile. If you haven't got into the guide, you'll want to get in here and make a Tableau public account. And then it should land you here. It should just take a second or two to put that together. But I hope everybody got that account created before you joined today. And so now that we're in here and we're in the My Profile setting, if you need to click on your icon to My Profile to get to this page, you may have to. And then we're going to go ahead and start a Create a Biz. I see a few comments, so maybe I was just too fast. Yeah, so anybody can use the public account. It's only if you want to use the desktop that you would want to get that student account. But the public account is open to anybody. Just know that any data that you put in there is also visible to anybody. Even if you turn off the download data information, they'll still be able to see your charts. So that's the difference between those two platforms. I hope that, okay, great. So I'm going to kind of move this just slightly here. Let's see. Okay, so now we should all be on this screen. It says connect to data. And then we're going to pull in those files that we had on our guide. I'll pull that back up. Here's your two files. We're going to first use the CO2 emissions one. And I have that already downloaded. So I'm going to just open my download folder real quick. Well, I thought I was going to open that real quick. Like it's kind of not thinking right. I'm going to try and check here one more time. See if that gets in there. Okay, I'm just going to download it again. I don't know why it's having such a hard time. Okay, so I just downloaded that and I'm going to drag that file in here. If you need to find that file, all you have to do is upload from a computer. Whoop, and of course there it is, isn't it? My downloads are here, and here is that one. I'll use that one and I can open it, but you can drag it in and it takes it just a second to pull that information in. And it depends on how big that file is. If it's huge, it's going to take longer. And we'll see that in a minute when we use the other file. It takes a little bit longer to get that one to pull in. But this one is pretty tiny. And so, okay, so let's go ahead and get our first CO2. We're going to use the state CO2 1990 to 2018. I'm going to pull that into the center here where the tables are. It's going to put that is the file that it's looking at. So you can see it's looking at it down here. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit because I think that will help y'all see. Is that too much? Maybe that is too much. If y'all need help with anything, if you need me to zoom in, you let me know. I'm going to close this so that we have a little bit more space there. And so it has the file here. It also has the file name here. And then it shows you what the name of the file is and the field types, but they're also out here. Now let's talk about this. If it was just me working by myself, I would do auto update automatically, but I kind of want to see you as I teach you it to be updated in the moment. So I'm going to choose update now, but at any other time, I would just do update automatically. So just so you can see. But I want you to see that process when it happens. I think it just helps me understand it a little bit more. And then I think we may have one more comment. Whoop, and here's the guide. Thanks, Jing Jing, sorry. Okay, now let's kind of talk about what happened here. It pulled in this information, and I know we may not have really looked at this spreadsheet before we looked at here, but most of the time you would have before you loaded it into the Tableau. But it is identified that it's a CO2 by state, and that's what that is. And it's identified it as a little globe. So if I click on that, it kind of tells me that it is a string by default. And if I hover over the global role, it tells me that it's a state and provenance. And it knew all that. It identified it all by itself. Then if I come over here, this is a sector, and it is a string data, which it should be. And it has it identified as a string data. And that's just because these are different sectors. I mean, it's just really a text box that doesn't have really any kind of value that is known by everybody, right? Or known by Tableau. And then we have the year. So we'll want to look and see what kind of number it is. So we're going to click on the number. And it has identified it as a whole number, but we want to make sure that the whole number is here, not the date. So people want to move this to the date, but the date, remember in Tableau, it has to be for it to be a date called a date in Tableau, it has to have a day, a month, and a year. And we only have the year, so we have to use it as a whole number. And then you can also see that you have a date and time. So if you have the time along with your day, month, and year, you could use that column. Okay, and then the last one is our emissions. And let's see what it says it is. And it's a decimal, and which it is. We can see that it is that. So you can see that as it's pulling in the information, it really has to be kind of clean to get to this point. And so a lot of times people have heard maybe tidy data. If you've heard that, that information just really kind of sums it up to, excuse me, every tidy data should have, every variable must have its own column, every observation must have its own row, and every value must have its own cell. So that's what it comes down to. But it can also be the organization of data, and that is what Tableau needs a bit of help with sometimes. Okay, now that we've kind of got that in there, let's go ahead and click, I'm going to kind of close this window here, but say publish, because it's actually going to get us into our first sheet, and then we can kind of talk about that screen as we come in there. So it may take this just a minute. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and type in emissions is what I'm going to save it as. And I think I will do spring 2023. I am going to show the tabs, and I'll show you what that means when we get it finally organized and published. But I'm not going to do a password here because that is for the data source, and I can turn off the data source for it to be downloadable. If you wanted that to be open, you could. But remember, as we've talked about, I wouldn't put anything in Tableau public if I wanted it to not be public information. So I'm going to click publish. And then it's going to kind of reset our screen. But just let us look around again. Down here at the bottom, we can see our data source. And if I click on that, it's back to the screen we were just on. So you know where you're at. And then if I click on the sheet, this is our first sheet that we'll be using. Here is all of our information. It's pulled it in. And just think about how much Tableau had really guessed at our data and got it right. And that's why we have to make sure that if we have data that we're putting into Tableau, sometimes in a number column, people will just put a question mark or put a tilde or maybe an NA. And anytime that there's another character in there besides a true numerical value, Tableau might think of that, oh, I think that's a string character. That must be a string column, and then it'll move it around. So that's why you have to kind of look at your data before you get here, and you can set it on the screen before over here. And we'll look at one of those, how we reset it in the next step. But let's just kind of do some basic stuff first now. Okay, so we have our first sheet. Let's kind of orientate ourselves around here on this screen a bit. We have our sheets down here. I can get another sheet just by clicking on the next screen over. I can get a new dashboard by clicking on the next icon. So you can see the sheet is like a little chart. The dashboard has squares on it. And then the last one is almost like a storybook because they call those the stories. And that's the part that we're not going to kind of cover today. But we're going to look at this sheet and we're going to manipulate this data in this area. I'm going to rename this sheet. And let's just go ahead and say that this is a bar graph, a bar chart. So it's told us, put the name up here, and then we can start doing something. So let's identify how we can go about that. We're going to drag the CO2 state to the columns up here. I just picked it up and it allowed me to drop it over there. So now you can see that it has created one column for each state. Now, if I move that down to the rows, you can see that it's created one row for each of the states. So I'm going to go ahead and move that back to the columns, and then let's get another item up here. Let's go ahead and do the CO2 emissions, and I'm going to put it in the rows. So now we are comparing CO2 emission by state, and we can split that data up by state, and it gave it a sum, and you can see that it summed it up because it put the word sum in front of this. You can even see that here. Once you do the drop down, you can also right click on it and get into the same place, and you can see that it has summed it. Or it can also do an average, or it can also do a median. I'm going to go back to the sum though, but just so that you know where things are there. The other thing is we have created this bar chart without me having to tell it to do so, because I left it on automatic right here in this marks box here. We'll use this quite a bit as we use from different things here. And so it picked the shape for me. So it picked a bar chart. I could have forced it into something else, but Tableau has decided this is probably the best chart for me, so because I have one measure and one dimension. So does anyone see anything they don't like? It's kind of hard to read the states, right? So we may want to use the swap button. So I'm going to swap that. And now we have that where we can see it horizontally instead of vertically. That's a lot easier to read. But also, we have quite a few states there, right? Because we have quite a few states, it's either going to have to be really long or really wide. But we could do a sort order. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the sort. I'm going to do the drop down and then choose sort. And then I'm going to do it by field. And I'm going to do it by descending. So we can see the biggest offenders at the top. Oh, and then I'm going to close that so we can see our chart again. So we also have these ascending and descending. I said that backwards. ascending buttons here at the top or descending. So we can do that from there. And then we have the swap button. And so it tries to put some buttons out here that you can use that a lot of people are going to use often. But you can also do it from the little labels if you wanted to. And even here's our sum, our totals. So I just wanted you to be able to see the different ways that you could do that. Okay. So let's also go ahead and see if we can add a sector. So if I wanted to include a sector, how would I go about doing that? I could do that just by pulling the sector over into our columns. And now we've made a sector for each, for all the states. So we made 5 charts. And it's a really good way to look at the data. There's nothing wrong with looking at it this way. But we might want to look at it kind of in a colorized way so that not every sector is the same color. I don't know about y'all, but I'm pretty visual. I like that. So I'm just going to use this back button or undo button, and we're going to do that again. But this time I'm going to take the sector and drop it to the color. And it's made a stacked bar chart this way. You can also drag the sector to the sheet area and it would do the same thing. I'm just trying to show you some different things that we wanted to do that. What if we wanted to combine what we just looked at the 2 ways? Well, let's drag another sector to the columns again. And it's made our 5 charts, but it's colorized them. And so now it's very easy to compare the bars in the sector, and the color helps across multiple charts using the same color. So it allows your readers to really identify, oh, industrial is red, or, commercial is blue, whatever it ends up being. One thing I don't always like is that Tableau always puts it in alphabetical order by default. So let's see if we can sort that a bit. So on the sector, we're going to choose sort. And we're going to do the field again and do descending. So we have them the most to the least again. And while this has made this chart a lot better, we still haven't dealt with looking at all 50 states. While we can't see all 50 states, they're still down there. And so if we had a bigger screen, we could see that. Of course, we can always scroll down and see the bottom if we needed to. But we can also filter, and we can filter by it's kind of removing process. So what do you think we should remove? So we should probably remove the small states. So let's drag the states to the filter, to this box here. It's kind of in the center here. And then it's going to allow us to kind of choose some different options here. I'm going to close this so we can see our options real quick. So we have the general, the wild card, the conditional or condition, and the top and bottom. So you can kind of explore these. General just allows you to kind of pick and select what you want. If you wanted to highlight things. A wild card is really what it sounds like if it only contains this. So in this data, it doesn't really make any sense. But if it was in something else, you might want to do whatever the wild card is. Condition is like if then, you could do that. And then the last one we're going to use is the top and bottom. And it helps you by doing that by field. I see we have something in chat. I'm going to look at that real quick. Oh, the lowest state. Yes, Angela. Thank you. I didn't even look. And so thank you so much. And so here we're going to do the top and bottom is the option we're going to do. We're going to do by field. and we're going to do the top. And then I say let's use the top 15, let's say. So I'm going to change that to 15. And then I have to kind of move my window up a bit so I can see down here and say okay. And then you can see that we have the top 15 states, and we have it colorized for our sectors, and we have the descending sectors here. So the most use is electric power going down clearly. And then you can see all of that. Okay. What if we wanted to look at charts where you don't have rows and columns at all? It doesn't make sense to think of all charts in terms of rows and columns. So let's go ahead and make a new sheet. We're just going to leave that there, and we're going to be over here. We're going to rename this one just by right-clicking and renaming. I'm going to name this the tree map, so we can all look and see what a tree map looks like. So what are we going to look at here is the sector area emissions. So let's drag the sector to the text. So here. So it just literally puts in the text. It's kind of making labels. Most of the time you don't use the text box unless you're using it to make labels, but I wanted you to see that. Now let's drag the CO2 emissions to size. So we'll do that here. So here is our tree map, and really it is set to just be rectangles, and it's really useful if you have a lot of multiple subcategories, and a lot of times you will see these on infographics. As you're thinking about infographics, you might have seen something like this, and it is typically used in business or finance. So just wanted you to be understanding what that is. It's a fine visualization, but I really wanted circles, so not a tree map. So I can tell Tableau I want a different chart by using the drop-down menu here and say circles. And now I have circles. Okay, if we got rid of the rectangles for the circles, but it gave me something called this is called a packed bubble chart. And now I am going to change it back to text in the drop-down menu. So here. And then this is a kind of a word cloud. But I kind of like my word clouds with some color. So I'm going to drag another sector to the color, and it will make it visualized. So if you are only using a visualization for a word cloud, I would not get into Tableau. It's too complicated. There's plenty of free things online to do a word cloud here. So don't use that. But if you happen to be in here and doing some other visualizations and wanted a word cloud, this is how you could do it. So just be aware of that. Okay, so let's rename that sheet to word cloud, because I'm going to leave it like that. I'm going to say word cloud and say okay. All right, so now let's go ahead and get another sheet and see what else we can do with this data. We've been able to get some charts and see what Tableau can do, but have we been getting what we think we should be getting? Let's take a look again at the bar chart. So I'm going to go back to the bar sheet. Some of these states are also our most populous one. So right at the top is Texas and California. So are they really using the most emissions, or is it because their population is big? So let's kind of take a look at that and see what we can do about it. So if we wanted to normalize for populations, would the chart change? I'm not sure. So we want to do some per capita calculations here. Tableau makes it really easy for you to pull in data from a secondary source. So we're going to go ahead and click on the data source again. And we're going to use the state populations that's on this file now. and I'm going to pull it over here. Now, I'm not going to set it on top because that is actually what is called a join. And we're just going to use a relationship. And whenever it has like that yellow link through there, you can see it's a relationship. So I'm going to put it over here. It's going to put it here. So you can see we have two kind of Excel spreadsheets sitting here. And we have a relationship that is having an issue, but we're going to fix that. So we can look at each one of these. We've looked at this sheet already before. And then we can look at this sheet. And then if we wanted to look at the relationship, we can. So let's go ahead and make sure that we're getting these to be in the right relationship. Tableau wants to try to read that, and it will try to match the data. But if it's not sure what's happening, it needs you to tell it how to read it. So that's what we're going to do now. So down here, you can see that we have these two related to a relationship, and it still has an arrow. But here is what the information is. So if we say the CO2 state, we want to get the state, and the state populations, we want to get the state. Then we want to add another field, and we want to say the year. So we're matching the year is equal to the year in the state populations. So what we just told it is in this sheet, we're going to match the state to this sheet's state column. And in this sheet or spreadsheet, Excel document, it has a year, and we want it to be equal to the population year out of this one. And at first we couldn't see these over here because it didn't know how to read it. But the minute we fixed our relationship, then we could see the data for each of those. And remember, I'm just using the update now. You're more than welcome to use the update automatically. I'm going to pull this up just so we can see a little bit more. And we have our 4 columns like we did when we first started using this data. And then I'm going to look at the state population and update that. And we have 3 columns in there, and it has the state and the population estimate and the population year. So now we can go back over to our sheet 3 and do some data searching with this. Oh no. Uh-oh. Let me see if I can get that back. Oh no. It did not like that. I'm so sorry. Let me see if I can fix that real quick. I don't know if I can fix that real quick. Let me see if I can. Get back in there real quick and see. Maybe you didn't have a problem. Maybe you're okay. I'm going to sign in again. And how's everybody doing? Yeah, yes. Thanks. Okay, I'm getting in there. I'm going to move fast. So I hope I don't blur you a little bit, but because I got to drag and drop some of my data here real quick. If you get lost, let me know, but I'm just going to try to get set up to you again. But what this means is we will not have things for my dashboard as much. Okay, so I'm going to do state, and then do year, and then update. And now I was going to tell us all to publish when we got over to the next one. Now this does take a second, so let's see if it's going to make, because it's pulling in the data for the first time and then it put it in there. And I'm going to say it's emissions again for oh, like how am I spelling that? Spring 2023. Now you should have this. I may have this as well. Let's see what it tells me. Oh, yep. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to rename this so that I may be able to pull those together. So, excuse me as we're kind of getting in there. Okay, here we are. I don't have my other sheets real quick, but I think I have a dashboard that we can see from last year, so it will make more sense to you at the end. But let's go ahead and do what we were going to do. We were going to look at our data here now. So we have both these sheets. Remember when we first started working, we were just working with mostly this. And then now we have this. And we also have our latitude and longitude. I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but anytime there's a geographical location that has a clear boundary, Tableau will pull in the latitude and longitude and generate it for you. So a lot of times that's really useful. It'll help you do maps. So since all states have a clear boundary, we know where that is in the world, it can pull that in. Now, something like maybe a river would not necessarily be a clear boundary, because remember, rivers move just a little bit. So just think about that. Although there may be data out there that says the river is mostly in this location. So just be aware of that. Okay. All right, let's do our per capita calculation. So that's what we were starting to do when I had a little glitch. And then, okay, so we need to get a calculated field. And you can do this several ways, but I'm just going to click on CO emissions. And I'm going to right click on that. And then I'm going to click create. And then I'm going to click calculated field. And so it automatically knows that CO2 emissions is going to be in that calculation. And it tells you right now that the calculation is valid because it's also in this orange kind of text. So I'm going to go ahead and name this normalized emissions. So I'm just going to start typing in here and type in normalized emissions and say okay. Oh no, I'm going to start typing in here now. Now I'm going to do the divide symbol, and now you can see that it has some red, so that means that there's an error in it. So it really will help you do any math, and you can do some very complicated math or some pretty simple math in here. And it's kind of like setting up an Excel formula if you're used to that. And so since I have a divide in here and I have not had another number to divide, then that's why it's giving me the error. But I'm just going to go ahead and keep typing here and say I want to divide that by the population estimate. So I'm going to say pop here, and it should bring up the list of what we might want to use. And I'm going to say population estimate. And now you can see it's recalculated. Everything is orange, which is the go in Tableau, and it says that it is valid. So I can say, okay. And now it put it down here as normalized emissions, right? We were up here, but now we're down here. And I want to kind of zoom in just a bit because this is so tiny. There's a little equals in front of that number sign. And that just means that it's a calculated field so that you can see that. I wanted to pull that out. I'm going to pull this back just a bit so we can have some more screen here. Okay. So what can we create here? Can we create a bar chart with the normalized dimensions? Do you know how? Okay. So we can do this many different ways, but one way of doing this, we're looking at state and normalized emissions. So let's click on CO2 state and then use our control command on Mac if you need to, or control on Windows, and normalized emissions. So my normalized emissions is already highlighted. So I'm going to go ahead and click on CO2 state. And then I can come over here and see the Show Me tab, and it will highlight things for me that it should be, the chart would be able to be using, since we have those two highlighted, those two variables or measures or dimensions. So let's go ahead and just double click now on normalized emissions. I'm just going to close this. I just wanted you to be able to see that. It will help you identify see, it wouldn't work in the line chart, but it could work in the map or a tree map or other things. So I'm going to close that. And then I'm just going to go ahead and double click on normalized emissions. I think I'm going to make sure this is unhighlighted now. So let me double click on normalized emissions. And so here is an example of what we were discussing in the PowerPoint, that Tableau will want to try and guess what you want. So it subbed up the normalized emissions. Since I only gave it one number, it did the sum. It totaled all of those numbers inside. It should be a bar chart. But if I didn't want it to be that, how could I split this up? Let's go ahead and split it up by state. So I'm going to drag the CO2 state to the columns. Or you can also double click and it would put it over there. And then I'm going to go ahead and swap these. Whoops, I almost used the wrong button. And then let's go ahead and do descending by just using this button here. And we can see now Wyoming is at the top. Now, don't think that we did all that just so that we could get Texas out of the leading space there. Texas is still here at the very top, or pretty close to the top. But we can see now that the bigger states are kind of weighted more accordingly to their population, of course, because Wyoming is having the most, and you can see what the emissions is causing it. And those states of us that are not doing so well maybe in our emissions are still up here at the top. But California is a very big state, and it's now been pushed closer to the bottom. See, let's see if we can find it real quick. Oh yeah, see, it's way down here. Because I bet you California is really trying to get their emissions under control a little bit more than Texas is. Okay, so I'm going to scoot to the top here. And we've done a lot here where we've used a calculated field and how to do that. And this, of course, is just our stacked bar chart. I'm going to rename this to my stacked bar chart. This will be your third or fourth. Feel free to leave it that way. Because you'll have more things at the end to play around with, which will be good. So I'll say, okay. And then let's go ahead and do a line chart. And so I'm going to go ahead and click on a new sheet and rename that a line chart. And say, okay. I find it helpful to label it as if I know what I'm going to be doing in the beginning. But if not, definitely be labeling it as you're completing it before you get into a dashboard. So, okay, so with our new sheet, let's use the year for the horizontal axis. That is usually how you want a line chart to be. It doesn't matter if you use the CO2 year or the population year. So I'm just going to grab the CO2 year and I'm going to drag it to the columns. And so, you know, again, Tableau is pretty smart here and knows that it's a year. And so it is put in the whole number, and it's giving me a chart that has a numerical axis. That's all good. And we need it to give it a number. So let's go ahead and use the normalized emissions that we created. And I'm just going to drag that to the rows. And so now you can see that we have the line going across several decades, 2 decades, I guess, several years. And it summed it up again, of course. So there's only one line on our chart. How could we split this data up just a little bit more? We could use the sector or the state which would we want to maybe try to use? I'm going to give y'all a second to interact. Y'all been doing so good already. Does anybody have an idea if we should use sector over state or state over sector? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and say that, yeah, we should probably use the sector, because remember when we have 50 states in there, that's a lot of lines. But we could have all of the sectors because we know we only have like 5 or 6 sectors. Oh, did I beat somebody to it? Oh, yes, we could also use color as well. We'll do that for sure. Yes, yes. Okay. So let's go ahead and do that then. I think that's a great idea. So let me think about that. Okay, I'm going to take the sector to the color. And then now it has brought the colors in and the lines for it. And it's all, it has its little key out here to the side. And you can see what is happening there over the years. So what if we didn't want to have a color for each sector, but we still wanted to split it up by color? Well, we could drag the color to detail and it will be all blue then. But I do like the color in the chart. It makes me happy. So I moved it back so that I could have it that way. Okay, so that's our simple line chart. And then I'm going to go ahead and click for new sheet. And we'll do one last kind of setup here. I'm going to actually rename this map. And we can see what we can do with a map now. We've kind of looked at that a little bit. So I'm going to drag the CO2 state to the center. And it's going to identify that I want to be in a map. Now let's kind of look at this map. If I wanted to really move it around, it's not letting me do that. I can do that just by using this and then getting the whole thing. And then it lets me, oh, I must have not clicked it right. Sorry, I clicked on the wrong thing. Then it lets me kind of pan around. So we can't, my screen is so tiny here, we can't see the whole United States, but we can make it large enough where we can see the continental United States. So poor Alaska and Hawaii get left out, but that's where we're at. So the other thing is, if we look at the show me map, right now we're using a symbols map, but let's go ahead and use our filled in map. And I'm going to click on that and it's going to pull that in. And then I'm going to redo that a little bit so we can see what's happening here. And then I'm going to drag the normalized emissions to the color. And we'll get a scale. And we could back out and see what Hawaii and Alaska look like. But this also really looks like what we found in the others, is that Wyoming is really having some emissions. And then maybe North Dakota is a little bit there. Some other ones, Virginia out here, Louisiana. We're not too far behind. And look, California is the lightest, I think, that I can see. I'm going to have to zoom in just a bit. But it's one of the lightest that I can see here. These Western states are really trying to do some good there. So then that helps you see that the scale is there. So remember, when we drag sector to color, every sector had a different color. Tableau knows if it's a dimension or a measure. So dimension, multiple colors, measure equals just a color scale. So a measure is just a single value. And so that's why you have that scale instead. Okay, so that is a lot of building of things. And we're about halfway through. Let's go ahead and do a dashboard. And so instead of getting the next icon, remember, I'm going to get that center icon and I'm going to open that. And now it has pulled all of our sheets are here. And now remember, you're going to have a few more because I have that little glitch. You should have about 4 or 5 here. and then we can pull those in. And I'm going to look up here at the top here. You can see the size is here, and you can have it fixed or automatic. And I'm actually going to choose automatic because right now we're not using the right hand side of my screen. So I'm going to say automatic, and that lets me see all of it. And then you also can see some, and in the fix, you can kind of see a whole drop down of menu. If you feel like that's something you wanted to look at, you could do that. If you're going to post this on something, or you're going to show it with a device, you can get in here and do that. But I'm going to set mine to automatic. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull over some of these. I don't have as many as I wanted to choose from, but I think I'll just drag the map over here into the center. And then I definitely am going to use line chart. I think I'll put it up here. And then I'm going to grab the stack bar chart because that's the only one I have left. But you may want something else like the 4 charts. And so I'm going to put it right next to, let's put it here and put the map all the way across the bottom maybe. Let's see here. I'm going to move this around. So you can move this around, and I'm just going to drag this to the whole side so we can have that there. Whoop, and I kind of squished this in there. Let me get that back out. Well, now I've made a mess of it, I think. I'm going to move that up there. Let's see if I can move it up there and get it. I really made a mess of this. Let's see if I can move these side by side. That's what I was kind of doing. That's what I wanted. So I wanted the bar chart here, line chart here, and then the map in the bottom so it has the most space for it. So feel free to pull over whatever you want and manipulate them around. You can see you can just drag those around by clicking on it or clicking on the other one or clicking on this one. Now I've highlighted something here and I need to get out of there. Well, that's interesting. Let's see if I click out there. We go. So also let's kind of use that filter for a second. I'm going to click on the filter and I'm going to use Texas here, and it should impact the other two. So that's what I meant when we were kind of setting up this information is you may set up the dashboard exactly how you want it to be, where you can have them interrelated or not, just depending on how you put them in here, what charts you show over here, and the filters that you have the options to let the audience be interactive with or choose not to. And we kind of set that on the last screen. So we're still in our account, I guess, kind of a bit in this worksheet or in this platform. And when we publish it, it will take us to the other side. And so I'm just going to click out here so we can have all of them again. We can also talk about the keys. You can move these around if you wanted to. I don't think that they're in a bad spot, but if I wanted this to be closer, I could drop it over here, or I could move this one up just by pulling this up here above the normal emissions, but I don't want it to be all the way over there. So, and now I'll have to drag this one over here. So you can just really kind of set this up however you want it to be. And let's make sure that all the things are set there. So feel free to play around with that. And if anybody has any questions, it's a good time to talk about that. I'm going to go ahead and publish mine, and you can publish yours too. It may take it a second. And so we can answer questions while we're getting it published. Did it go that fast? I think it did go that fast. I can't believe it. Maybe yours is taking a little bit longer because you do have a few more things than I do. But oh, and we may want to rename the dashboard. I'm gonna say, let me think about this. I think I'll just say emissions dashboard. So we might say that. I might have to put spring 2023. Say okay. And then I'm gonna publish it one more time to make sure that it gets over there. And then I'm actually gonna click this little close, but that won't take you out of your account. That will just take you to a place where we can kind of look at the settings. So here I am on this one. So it's made me look at this specific one. And I'm going to just go up here and look at my settings. And so underneath my profile is the settings. I can change my password here or my email address, change my profile URL, delete my Tableau public account if I wanted to, but I can also give some permissions. I can let others download or make a copy of your visualizations. And I say, nope. And then publish viz on your profile. This is checked and I can always toggle it off if I need to. And then I can save some other things there. So I'm just going to go back to my profile and then you can see that I have some visualizations. So this one is still being built. This is the second one that we just went through, and this is the first one that I was doing that I didn't complete. But we can look at one of these here. And if I click on these little 3 dots, I can say, turn off this visualization so will be hidden from this area, or feature it on my profile and that will move it to the top of your profile, or you can delete it altogether. But then we could look at this, and this is typically what my emissions dashboard looks like with the bar chart here instead of the stacked bar chart and the line and the map. Yep. And then down here, you can see some more information. You can change the details here if you needed to edit the details. You can change the title. You can get an external link if you wanted to show where you were putting this information. If you had a visualization that inspired this one, if you wanted to give a little bit more description, you can do all that. And then once you make some changes, then you can save the changes. So I'm just going to click cancel because I'm not going to change anything here. And then I'm just going to go ahead and get back to my profile, and maybe yours is seeing this be put together. Okay, if nobody has any questions there, I'm going to go ahead and move forward. So we wanted to learn a little bit about our clean data. I don't know about y'all, but whenever I get something off of a government website or from a data set, most of the time, and data sets that the library has access to, it's not very clean. So let's go ahead and see if we can kind of show you this. Now, I didn't prep this for you to follow. I just wanted you to see it. So you will not have this hands-on action here. But I'm going to get my my file out. Hold on just a second while I do that. And here. So this is what the file looks like before I even got it semi-prepped to get into Tableau. And I just felt like y'all should be able to see it. Remember, we talked about the blanks being in there and subtotals being in there. So this is how I'm going to fix that. But I'm not really focused on Excel, so I'm going to do this pretty quickly, but I wanted you to just be able to see it. So I'm just going to do a find. Yeah, let me move this out of my way, I think. Be best here. I'm going to put it down here pretty close. Okay, so I'm going to do my find and select, go to special, go to blanks, say okay. And then I'm going to say equals A to here and do control enter. And it will now put Alabama or Alaska or Arizona all the way down the sheet. So we took care of that information there. And then I'm going to say copy. And then I'm going to say, we're going to really look for only values. And then I'm going to look at the whole sheet, and I'm going to sort by a custom sort, and we're going to sort by sector, and we're going to say okay. So what I've done now is I've got the states filled in every place that they're supposed to be. I took out the blank spaces and I took out the subheadings, and this is what I used to put into our file for emissions that we've been using, and that's why it's a lot cleaner for Tableau, because remember, every cell has to have its own value. So we just wanted to make sure you could see that. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to my Tableau, and we're going to create another viz, because we're going to actually use oh yeah, I'm going to show you how to use the viz to do a pivot real quick. So let me just grab that real quick and we'll put that in there. So I had actually put that in with URLs. So if you wanted to do that, you can. I'll put those back up in the corner again. I think that'll be a better place for it. So this one, which we haven't been using yet, we're going to pull this one in. And this is where I kind of manipulated the data so that we could have the emissions one that we ended up using. So I pulled in the state pivot, but look at the information. Did it read the information right? Oh, it did. So that's good. Okay. And I don't know if it did or not. Let me see. No, see, it had not. Okay, good. So then we still have our global and our sector and then our years. And let's just talk about what I did. I just changed that the field names are in the first row so that it knows that the first row is not real data, but it's the headings for that row. And then I'm going to update this automatically. And I'm going to close this so I just have a little bit more space to work with. So you have to do this crazy thing where you have to highlight all the number ones. So I'm going to do, I'm going to just click in the white space area. Whoop, I did not get that to go right. I'm going to try again and then pull it back over here. And let's see if that works for us. Now I'm going to try one more time and see if I can get it to go. Sometimes it's cranky. And I'm going to scoot over here and see if we made it. All right, one last time here. I just did it 2 seconds ago, but me and my fingers sometimes are not the fastest here. What we want to try to be doing is highlighting all the years. And so I'm just going to try. Oh, I think I'm getting it this time. And see if it did not go. Okay, I'm going to try from this direction once more and see if that does it. Sometimes when it loads in here, it will not slide appropriately. Oh, that might have been it. Let's see. Yep, it did. And I do not want the state and the sector. And so then I'm just going to be anywhere in the white space again. And I can do that down at this last column, or the first column is where I usually do it. And I'm going to right click now. And I'm going to use the pivot. And so I'm going to update now. And now you can see this is the 4 columns that we've had in our sheet that we've been using for the whole time. We have our state, our sector, and our name. Now, these did not come over right. We need to label them, of course. And so I can rename them just by clicking right here and rename the pivot field. Whoop. Well, that is not what I wanted to do. Okay. Yes. So I need to rename this to year. And then I could do the same with the other. And Remember, we want to make sure that this is the whole number. I'm just gonna, and then we could do the same with this. So I just wanted you to be able to see all of that. Before we got too far into that. Now the last thing we are going to do is really use our Netflix one data that we had as our second file there. I'm going to go ahead and publish this real quick. I'm not even going to publish it, I don't think. So it doesn't take time. I'm going to say don't publish this. And I'm going to create a new viz, which please feel free to follow me along. Oh, I totally forgot. I wanted to show you where you can find this information. If you find any data any place, you can always load it up to Tableau, but they also have some resources for you here. So I'm going to click here, and then they have some sample data here, and that's where I gathered this information for us. And I did not clean up this data, and so we will have a data set here that is pretty problematic, and we can see how we can work with that. So you can download it from here, or if you've already got the other one, that's great too. I'm just going to go back to our create part, getting to my profile, and then create a viz, and then pull in my Netflix data. I'm going to just drop that down here so I can pull it in. And it may take it just a second. Okay, so let's see what this information has for us. We'll have to set up our new relationship. So let's look at some of this data. I'm just going to pull this in and see what we have. So I pulled it into our table area. I'm going to pull this up a little bit so we can see some things here. And we can see our fields over here. There's quite a few fields. So it is reading the information right. So we don't have to worry about that. It's got the field names for the first row. These look to be duration minutes. That might be, we could maybe change that around, but duration sessions, but type is titles, and type, these are strings. Let's update this data so we can see what it is. Oh, and we have quite a bit of nulls, so we may have to think about that as we're doing our data. We may not want to mess with these since not everybody has some data there. But we have a type, we have titles, we have the date added, and we really have a date because we have a month, a day, and a year. And then we just have a year. And let's see how this is reading it. It's reading it as a whole number. That's great. It has a rating, description, oh, and a show ID. So this is a number that I think Netflix has given to every show, and this is going to be our relationship that'll show what is how we're going to read the data to one another. So I'm going to pull in another one and see what we have here. And you can see that it has the cast and the ID. And it is looking at the Netflix titles is here, and Netflix titles cast is here. So that's what it's equal to. So let's go ahead and pull these in and see what they look like as they come through. Remember, don't ever drop on top of each other, because then that means you're really joining that, and it puts it in the same spreadsheet, if you will, instead of in other ones, because we're moving through several different ones. I'm going to go ahead and pull these all over real quick and then look at that data as we move through. So we already looked at the cast, and we're good with that. That relationship is good. We're not having an issue with any of our relationships, but we can check each of them as we move through. And let's update this. So, oh, and this is really kind of like the genre. So I'm going to rename that real quick to genre. I think that's how you spell genre. I'm not the best speller. Yeah. And here's our ID. and that our relationship is working there. I'm going to look at the next relationship. It's looking good. I'm going to pull this data in, make sure it's good. And then the last one is our directors. It's good. And we can look at that data over here as well. And it's all good. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and get into a sheet, and it's going to make me publish it and do all that good stuff. So I'm going to click, I can either push publish here or click sheet, and it's going to create the extraction. And it was taking a little bit of time. This is a little bit more data here. And this is the last thing that we'll be doing today. We're about 30 minutes out from the end. But I thought we would look at this data and see if we could figure out some simple things we can do with this data as well. Yes, okay. Should the ID be treated as a number or a string? Yes, okay, let's see here. So they should be numbers. I thought it was a number. I can't see it now. We'll look at that again. And you know what? It may be seen as a string because that number won't mean anything. It won't be a year. Oh, it could be a whole number. Let's make sure it's a whole number. Yeah.
It is listed as a whole number, but
Okay.
I guess my question was, we're not treating them as numbers, but as categories. So I didn't know if that's going to make a difference to Tableau and how it's recognizing it.
No, it really will not, as you can see when we get in there. I'm so glad that you unmuted, and that was nice of you. Because we're really just considering that a whole number, and then we're going to use it as a whole number. So while we can use a whole number as a year and make it do some things with that, we would not use this as that way. So we would have to understand that concept of that whole number just is an identifier for Netflix. It really doesn't have any value to our audience, if you will. Even if we start to look at different things, we could see how many shows were put out in a certain year or month, or we can see maybe using the genre, we might be able to see how many scary movies are out there, but that number will just help us identify that this is different from this one. So, because that show ID is how you're going to make the data readable across all those different data sets. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. That's just, I was trying to clarify for a few reasons to make sure that I was getting it, but thank you.
Yeah, sure. And I see we're kind of having that discussion in the chat as well. It can be treated either or, and I kind of verbalized that as we were talking about it. And especially since we're not going to use it to do any calculation. Yeah. So, and this is taking a little bit of time. I wonder if it's taking y'all as much time as well. I'm going to let it set for just a second longer because I was finding that I was kind of preemptively getting out, but if not, I have a dashboard that I can pull in with the Netflix. I'm going to let it go until 4 minutes. You can see there's a time lapse here. Oh, there it is. It was 3 minutes, just a little bit past 3 minutes. Maybe y'all got it a little bit faster than me. Maybe some of y'all are still looking at that. Although I still have a little, oh, okay, it just was thinking for a second. Okay, I'm going to let us sit for a second longer in case anybody else was just hung up there for a second longer. And then we can kind of look at all of our tables. Because remember, we have a lot of data now that we didn't have before. So we're going to have a full set over here. I think if we're all good, I'm going to go on ahead. If you're still waiting on it, please send a reaction like, oh, this is not good, or say something in chat that you need just a minute more or 30 seconds more. Okay, I think we're all okay. So let's kind of look at all of the data that is set up over here. So we have our Netflix titles, and we have the date added, and a description, and the minutes, and the sessions. Now, as we were kind of looking at this minutes, we might really want it to be a number. I'm not going to change that now because we're just going to do a few simple things that we've kind of already done. Hopefully y'all will be able to identify them and we can see that. But like maybe the release year would be useful. The title might be useful. The number, the count will clearly be useful. Then we can do something with the cast or the genre. Yeah, we might look and see what was the biggest genre in all of Netflix yet. And then maybe we could look from the countries and we would have a map or something. So that's what I thought we might just kind of pull some of those things around. We can see that we have a latitude and longitude. And why do y'all think we have that? Because we have another geographical location that has a clear boundary. This time it's countries. And so that is really useful, and it will pull that in. Okay, let's just do some simple stuff here. I'm gonna name my first one. I'm gonna try to do a bar chart again. Maybe somebody might know how to do a bar chart. So since we were talking about those genres, let's see if we can do something with those genres. So I'm gonna put the genres in the columns. And then I'm gonna grab the title count and put that in the rows. And so we can see all of these things. And remember, our data here still has some nulls. So we'll have to be aware of that. I'm gonna quickly swap that around so I can read those a little bit easier. And then I'm gonna do a descending so we can see what is the best or the biggest genre here. Whoop, and there it is. It's the international movies. That makes sense from what I've seen on Netflix. And I should say, when we were looking at the data, I think this is only through just the beginning of 2020, I think is what it was, the year. So we may look at that when we're looking at our years. But we have international movies, and then dramas, and then comedies is what our biggest one. And I'm so addicted to thrillers or horror movies. They're a little bit lower in the screen than I thought they would be, but I really do like them. Okay, so I'm just gonna see if we can quickly create a line chart here. So I'm gonna type in a line chart and see if there's anything here that we might want to do that. So we might look at that date added, since we really have a date instead of just a year. And we can compare that to Netflix titles. Could anybody suggest something that we might do there? Okay, I'm gonna say maybe date added. We'll go to the column, and then Netflix titles will go to the rows. Is this the one I want? I'm not sure I want that one. What are we looking for? No, I'm sorry. We don't want titles. We want a count. Sorry. We want the number. That's right. Because we're looking at it for the year. So we have the how many were added. And I mean, this makes sense to me that we have started kind of picking up in the 15, 2016, 2017 time. And then of course, remember, this is only added to, I think, the beginning of 2020. So don't think that they stopped adding things there, just that maybe not a lot of data is there. And we can kind of check that by using our date added. It has identified the year, but we could also tell it to maybe give us the date in the year, date in the month, I mean. So I'm going to right click on that and look down here and see if there's something that would be useful. Oh, what about this? I think that might be really useful for the data that we have here. So it will show us that, and it's quite long, so you could see the months are inside here. But you can see the line is kind of broken out into each month and the point. And then January is the last time we added anything for 2020. And so you can kind of do those across there and see what was pivotal. Okay, and the last thing that we might want to look at is making a map. So I'm going to go ahead and get a new sheet, and I'm going to rename it map real quick. And I'm just going to go ahead and double click on the country, and it's going to pull it in there. Now this map is going to be a lot more exciting than our other map because it has more of the world involved. I'm going to get it set up so I can also pan around with it. Just by clicking on that, I can move it around. And then we may want to use the field map. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull that up here and make it go from the symbols map to the field map, and then click show me again so that it's out of the way. And then I'm going to kind of reset this so you can see most of the world in one spot. Has a little overlap, of course, but then you can kind of see what countries are putting the information in. And then if we do the title, the next click, title count, where is that? There it is. We can put it in our color scale, and it will really highlight what is happening there for us. So we can see that United States is the most that has items in Netflix, but also India and England are not too far behind. And then quite a bit of the rest of the world has something in there as well. So that's nice that we can see all that different diversity there in Netflix. So, all right, let me see what we have. If we have another question, you show world cloud for this data set. So are you asking for the word cloud for this data set? We can maybe do that with genre. Do we want to do that? We can definitely do that. Okay. So let me kind of use my let me get a new screen here so we can do that. And let's see how we can get that to work in there. I'm going to pull that genre. I'm going to drop it right into the field. We may want to take that and put it into the size. Let's see if that does it for us. Yeah, it's going to kind of break it out in that chart. Let me do it a different way. I'm going to put it back into the label so we have the text first. So I'm going to go text, and we have the labels. Then I'm going to take it into the size. Maybe we'll want to. So since every one is going to be slightly different, I'm not sure we're going to get a different color value there. Okay, we did, but we are not getting, let's see if we can get circles. What are we going to get with circles? They're all equal. Oh, we probably have to tell it what is the categories. I'm sorry. That's my fault. Let me see if we filter it here. Does that get us something here? Let me look at my cheat sheet and see what I need to be doing. Somebody might have an option. Change circles to text. I think that is not what we want. We want these to be out here. Let me see if I can clear that again and try again. Let's see here. I think we have a clear, yeah, here we are. This is a clear sheet. I think we need to be trying one more time. Let's see here. Not color to label. Change circle to text. Okay, I'm going to take the genre And I'm gonna say text. Is that what you're thinking, Jing Jing? Why don't you unmute and help me?
Yes, put it to text and change the automatic to text.
Oh, to text. Thank you. That's the second step that I missed.
And also I think to size, not to text. Sorry.
Okay, yes.
No, not this one. That's the one. Yeah, round to text.
See, it's just
Oh,
not
this
playing.
is-
It may be the data is not clean enough to do that. I'm sorry,
Mm.
guys. Let me see why that is not working a little bit. Let me also see what's in that category, right? I'm gonna go back to the data source and look and see if we have what is in there. So let's see what is in there. And remember, we're looking at this one. And so that's right. So we just have a name for it, but it should sum it up somewhere.
I think there is something. Let's say the counts or some
Yes,
other.
the count. Okay,
Yeah.
let's try this. Maybe that is what we need. I'm going to try to clear again. Let's see if we can process this. Oh, it's not clearing the sheet now. Cool. Okay, here we go again. I'm going to try this and see if that doesn't help us. I don't know if this will or not. Yeah, not that. I wonder if I take this though, because it needs the number and the text. And that's what the problem is. It's not in the same. For a word cloud, you need
Yes.
this to be counted in here, and it's not in there the way it's set up. Yeah, go ahead, Jing Jing.
Drag count to size. Yes. We need count.
Oh, there we go. We got it.
And then
If we wanted to
yeah.
use circles, we would just go here.
So
We
text.
that
We use
together.
text. Yeah. No, use text. Use text.
Oh, okay.
Not circle.
I like those circles.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, because we're doing that. And then also let's see if we can get some color in here. Oh, I messed it up. I'm going to take the other one to the color. Let's see if that will work. Yeah.
让热 to color.
Oh, see, it's not going to do. Okay, well, you would still have a word cloud. Just want to be pretty. What are y'all saying over here? Oh, yes, y'all were trying to help as well. Thanks so much. So we kind of processed that and got that in there. I think we ended up with it, but I think that that data needs to be just a little bit cleaner so that it would work the way we wanted it to be. Especially, I would love for this to be colorized, right? But it's make it.
I tracked a second genre category to color, and it colored it.
Okay,
yes.
Let's do that then. I'll take it. There we go. Thanks so much. Was that you, Andrea? Is that yes? Thanks. Okay. All right. So that is a great question. Thanks so much for that. Who suggested that? I'm sorry. Moy. I hope I got that right. And that was a great question. Does anybody else have any other questions? We've kind of gone through what we were going to do. The only thing left that we could do now is make a dashboard here. So I could quickly pull that together. And we have some fun things there. I'm going to use that last sheet. I didn't name it something, but I'm just going to name it from this screen real quick. I'm going to say word cloud. That would be fun over there in the dashboard. And I'm going to pull it over first because it's going to be pretty large. I might put it in the bottom of the map. And these would be two cool ones. Notice that it's not using all my screen again, so I have to tell it to do the automatic again. And then we'll have a little bit more space. And let's see if it will spread back out. It is not spreading back out. Let's see if we can put these side by side then, and maybe that will. I was hoping this one would spread out again. Oh, I'm clicking too much. Oh, there it goes. And we don't necessarily need this one to be visible, right? So we could always edit this one and even take it out. Because clearly you can see the categories on the names itself. And so that would be less information that we need. We can just remove that one. So we have a little bit more space here. Yeah. And then do we have one more question? Yes. So I see that we have another question. Can you export every data sheet? You can export anything that you want that you've put in here. So yes, you can do the whole dashboard, or you can do each sheet, or however you want to do that. And you don't have to really export that any place. You could leave it here on Tableau Public since it's posted. Then you could just show it from here and point your viewers or audience to it from here as well. So I'm just going to leave these two, and I'm going to publish this. And I'm just going to do this as Netflix. Let's see, I'll do 2023 spring. I'm going to do my tabs. I'm going to say publish, and it'll take it a second maybe to do that. And then I'll get us back on the other side and see it. I'm going to close this just a bit. And then I'm going to look at my profile because it will take it a second for it to populate in there. So we can see that. And it's coming up. And I think we may have one more. Yes, you could do that as well. I'll show you how to do that in just a second. Okay. So I'll pull one of these up and see that. So it's taking just a minute for these to populate. Now remember, this one probably will not populate because that was the one where it glitched and I hadn't saved a lot in it. So it may not have anything there. But Netflix will be coming up shortly. And if not, we could look into, let's see if we can get that to populate, and maybe we can save the JPEG, the word cloud as a JPEG. Oh, yeah, there it is. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on this one, and it allows me to look at it. And since I let it show the sheets, you can see that it lets me see the individual sheet, or it lets me see the whole dashboard. So I thought it was ready to be seen, and now here it's taking a minute for it to look up. But then if you would just open the sheet, then you could save that as an image and store that as a JPEG. So see, I have all of these here. So here's the dashboard. But if I wanted to go back to the world cloud and just have that displayed, I could do that. And then we could save this. And I might even just save that once it comes up. I could right click and see that. You know, I could save that. Here we are. I can right click and save that, or I can even use this little download. And then you can save it as an image or whatever you're wanting to do. We want to save this as the image from our question. I'll say image, and then it's in PNG, but you could definitely save that, open this and change it to a JPEG if that's what you wanted. Good. Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Okay. Any other good questions? We're kind of wrapping up a little bit early, but before we get too far out, I wanted to make sure I remember to just give you our evaluation. If you'll click on this, it'll populate a form for you. And we have most of that filled out for you. All you have to do is fill in the information at the bottom. That just gives us some good feedback as we're learning how to present some information to people. Y'all had some really good questions. I really appreciate that today. And if you have any questions right now, I'm happy to explore that with you. We did some good problem solving together. Oh, and Ching Ching dropped the link in the chat for the evaluation form as well. It is here. And then if nobody has any questions, then we can go ahead and wrap up. But I wanted to make sure if you had any questions, let me know and we can definitely do that. Oh. Okay, so that is a good question there. It says, what's the next step to learning this better? the library is really just trying to get these visualizations out. I do explore this a little bit and could probably troubleshoot with you if you were learning for something else. But I think there's lots of classes that are also using Tableau now. So maybe depending on what subject area you're in, you may explore if there's something there. Also, since it's data and visualization, it might be a good stats backup to a class, or I know that we have faculty interested in using it, or at least mentioning it in class so that they can get some better information to their classrooms. So all of those, but I don't know if we will really process to the next one for a little bit. We're still just trying to get this one kind of sorted out and see if we could get anything else out to the campus. Does somebody have a question? Please feel free.
And also the Tableau, their website, they have the tutorials too. And the library, we have a database, it's called O'Reilly, and it offers books and courses or videos about Tableau.
Yes, Jing, that is super great. I really appreciate you mentioning that. And I think you can just look at those resources, and they were some more learning will be here, and they will help you kind of understand how getting started, connecting to data. But you're more than welcome to ask me, and I can help you figure out something. Now, I won't teach another whole lesson, but if you had something you were trying to get done with data, I'd sure try to explore that with you to make that a seamless transition if at all possible. O'Reilly, yep, that's the one in our information. And actually, I'll put a link to that here on our Tableau guide, so you'll have that. And then it will take us just a little bit to get it closed captioned, and then I'll send out the video to all of us as well. Thank y'all again. It was a good lesson, I thought, at least. I really enjoy it when y'all interact with me a little bit. That's so nice. Thank you so much.